This is the trip that I was looking forward to the most in 2021. It was going to be my third trip of the season, and my first of the season in September, which is my favorite month in the park. My route would cover some areas I've previously traveled through, but I was also going to explore some new territory. I had launched from Smoke Lake into a big loop, camping on Big Porcupine, McGarvey, North Grace, Louisa, Phipps, and Ragged along the way. Just me, a canoe, and some gear. I was ready to disconnect. I was ready to set out for 8 days alone in Algonquin Park. I decided to call this trip the Big Dipper. Okay, so this is the last video I'm taking of the trip, which might be the first video that I end up showing. So I decided about, I think like halfway through the trip, that I might actually try and do a video log style video. But yeah, so I kind of only started talking to the camera on day, I think 3 or 4, which means that there isn't much. There's a lot of footage from the first few days. There isn't a lot of footage of me talking to the camera, showing around the campsites, explaining what's going on. So it's mostly just silent footage, I guess you can call it, just scenery, like shots like that. I arrived at Smoke Lake at 7 a.m. This was my third trip starting from Smoke Lake, and for the third time, the lake was covered in a thick fog, making it nearly impossible to see more than a few feet in front of me. The first portage was short but uphill. I took my canoe, fully loaded barrel, and camera gear on my first carry. I had a pretty terrible sleep the night prior, and my lack of energy really started to show during the portage. The paddle down Ragged Lake was very peaceful. The sun was shining, and I got to watch other groups start their morning routine at their campsite as I passed by. I was the only one actually on the water. When I got to the portage landing for the Devil's Staircase, I laid back on my pack behind me while still in the canoe and took a quick 10-minute nap to try and get some more energy. I arrived at Big Porcupine Lake, my destination for the night, and took a campsite midway through the lake. It was a nice site with open rock facing west and a spacious interior. I didn't know what was still available in the south end of the lake, and I decided not to take my chances paddling down. I spent the afternoon relaxing around the site. I did my campsite chores, made an early dinner, got a fire going for a few hours, and sat by the shoreline. The forecast that evening was calling for a ton of rain. It started to rain at 7 p.m., so that's when I got into the tent, with my fingers crossed that I wouldn't wake up in the middle of a huge puddle. I packed up camp and got on the water at 8:30 a.m. to a calm lake and a sunny sky. I took my time paddling through Big Porcupine towards my first portage of the day. After I finished the short portage, it was time for the double Devil's Staircase. I wondered why it was called double. Was it going to be twice as hard? Double the stairs? I'm still not sure, but I do know that the first 100 meters was basically straight uphill, with some sharp 90-degree turns making it difficult to maneuver while carrying the canoe. At least I wasn't scared of running into any bears on the portage. They take one look at those flight of stairs and say, nope, screw that, I'll go get my berries somewhere else. The last portage into McGarvey was much easier in comparison, although it did still have some rolling hills and a very steep decline right at the end. But alas, I made it to McGarvey Lake with a strong tailwind at my back. I was supposed to be the only person on the lake, so I went straight for the island site. The island was empty and waiting for me, so I brought my gear on shore and started to set up camp as the winds grew even stronger. Luckily, the wind was completely unnoticeable. I could hear the wind, I could see the wind when looking out to the water, but the island gave me the perfect amount of protection. It was a pretty nice campsite. There's lots of rock by the shoreline, an open interior, and a more sheltered tent spot inland that I chose to use for the night. I spent the afternoon relaxing around the island. I collected some firewood, made a delicious dinner, and then got a fire going. Right before I was about to get into the tent, I noticed the stars were making an appearance. I grabbed my camera gear and set up for a few astrophotography shots. My second morning here. It's just raining right now. It's 7:30ish in the morning. Woke up at 6:30. Trying to go back to sleep, but I wasn't able to. And I'm packing up from McGarvey and moving on to North Grace today. And that's where I'll be spending tonight. It was a calm and beautiful morning on McGarvey Lake. After packing up camp, I got on the water to start my day towards North Grace Lake. When I arrived on North Grace, I paddled across the lake and took a campsite on the east end. It was the one I was hoping for, and it was absolutely perfect. I spent about an hour just admiring how gorgeous the campsite was before I even unloaded my canoe and set up camp. Eventually, I set up camp, and then I did a quick day trip into Stringer Lake, collected firewood, and had a fun back and forth with a loon. Here we are on North Grace. I don't know why my voice just sounded weird. Look at this view. Campsite's over there, sun over there. I'm standing on this epic rock. Campsite's over there. Dinner. Sunset. Just chilling, enjoying the weather. Enjoying this trip. Day 3. Day 3 it is. Okay, time to set up a time lapse. After a beautiful sunset, I was treated to an even more beautiful moonset before the stars filled the sky. Day 4 was going to be a rest day, so I spent a long time laying on the rocks, looking up and admiring the night sky before going to bed. I couldn't have asked for a more peaceful morning. From the brilliant sunrise colors to the morning mist sweeping across the lake, my 4th morning in Algonquin Park was incredibly relaxing. Not to mention, the backdrop on North Grace Lake made the view from the fire pit look like a real-life painting. I toasted a bagel over an open fire and then proceeded to do absolutely nothing for the rest of the day. I took a ton of pictures and videos and went for some paddles around the lake. But most of the day was spent basking in the sun at the front of my campsite. I thought about going for a swim, but the water was too cold. Or I'm just a big baby. Either way, I decided to just splash some water on my face instead. I still hadn't seen anyone since I left Big Porcupine a few days earlier. No one was camping on McGarvey or North Grace. Not even a single person passed through. I was still completely alone. So this is the baton that I was using to baton the firewood in the background. It's just chewed up. This guy doesn't have a dent on it. It's in the same line again. Well, I think I'm done doing wood for the day. I got this first pile here. I got this to start the fire. And I got that pile. Still have these guys that I can process. And this guy. Oh, if I want. There's my camera, I was filming myself. Here's some of my gear. Chair, bear spray, sweatshirt, yoke, barrel, camera bag, water bottle, day pack, sandals, camera on tripod. Say hello to my tent in the background. Opa, opa, opa. Okay, goodbye. It's night 4 of my trip. I'm currently on North Grace Lake. I'm just out for an evening paddle to watch the sunset. I'm the only one on this lake. I was the only one on McGarvey 2 nights ago. I was the only one on North Grace last night. And I'm the only one on North Grace again tonight. So no one's passed through, no one's camped. Just this stretch between Big Porcupine until I go to Louisa tomorrow. No one has been through this way. So it's my own little slice of solitude here. There's the moon in the sky. Right about there. There's the moon. It's on its way down. Last night it set at about 8:30, and I think tonight it's going to be setting around 9. Alright. I'm going to go enjoy the rest of the sunset without you. Towards the end of the evening, I went to lie on the rock and enjoy the stars. I was laying flat on my back with a million stars up above. The fire was crackling with a faint flicker to my left. The quiet shutter of my camera was going off every 10 seconds behind me for a time lapse. I felt totally calm and at peace in that moment. Oh, I hope I'm in view here. I'll give you a bit of a sweaty update. I just finished the 1.5 kilometer from North Grace into Louisa, which is my longest portage of the trip. I had a bar of cell service on North Creek and I saw that it was going to be 42 kilometers an hour winds today, and Louisa's already pretty big and choppy as it is, so I decided I wanted to wake up as early as possible, get to Louisa as early as possible to get here before the worst of the winds. Also, Louisa's fully booked, I believe, like 1 or 2 left available when I started my trip, so by now it's probably fully booked. And I wanted to not be stuck with a campsite exposed to 42 kilometer winds. So anyways, I got up at 6:20, got on the water 7:45, and it's now 9 o'clock, so it took me an hour and 15 minutes to paddle the portage, do the portage, double back. Nothing like 4.5 kilometers to start the morning. And yeah, now I'm here at Louisa taking a 2-minute breather. The water looks calm from here, but I'm in the south bay of Louisa and the wind is coming from the southwest. So I'm expecting the worst once I get into the main body of the lake. Right now I'm sheltered by this beautiful portage that I just did. I think that's all I have to say for now. I'm gonna get back and paddle Louisa and go look for a site. Wish me luck. Okay, so I just arrived on one of the island campsites on Lake Louisa, and yeah, it's insane. I'm gonna give you a little walkthrough. Perfect beach landing. It can't get any more accessible, any easier, just sheltered a little bit from the wind once you get in this little bay. There's the official campsite marker. This is what I was worried about at first. You know, that the fire pit would be right exposed like this. And then it's just not a good site for this type of weather that I'm getting today. But luckily that's not the main fire pit. There's just trails everywhere. You can go there, you can go there. Got this table, which is nailed on. You got this fire pit. Nice fire pit. There's not really seating, but you can move the logs if you want, or just bring chairs like I do. You can see there's pretty much, you can pitch your tent anywhere. There's just massive flat ground. It's all pretty rolly, but there's little flat patches through and through. Like there's one right here. There's another one right here. I think I'm gonna choose this option actually, just because it's inland away from the western winds, and I like the tree setup. I think I'm gonna pitch my tarp from there to there. I'm gonna try and cover the tent, or at least a portion of it, and then just have the other portion to sit under and store my gear, because it is not only 42 kilometer winds, but it's also supposed to rain this evening. That guy is gonna be really loud when it falls. It's already fallen, and you can see what it's done to this tree, which is all warped. Even those trees a little bit, like maybe tonight with these winds that I'm getting, but yeah, it's gonna come crashing down at some point. Hopefully it's not tonight, because that will scare the shit out of me, but anyways, definitely don't want to pitch your tent here on a windy day. Probably not on any day, just to be safe. So not only you got rocks, shelter, fire, like you have your own private beach. It ain't big, but it'll do. And the only thing I'm upset about is that I only have one night here. This is a hard site to get. It's a busy lake and it's always taken first. So who knows when I'll be back here, but I'm gonna make the most of it. I'm gonna enjoy it. And then tomorrow I'm off. The winds were starting to pick up, so I went out to collect some water. It was only when I got back to shore that I decided to set up my tent and tarp and do the rest of my campsite chores. Just wanted to show my tent and tarp setup. So I told myself at the beginning of this trip that I was going to set up a tarp every single night, even if it was good weather, even if it wasn't calling for wind or rain or whatever. I just need to get better at it. It takes me too long. I don't have a consistent method of which tie-outs I want to use or how to do the ridge line or whatever it is. So practice, practice, practice. I decided to do it covering my tent. It's partially covering my tent. So you can see it's a little bit open on this side. So if you look at the line here, so which means that the rain will basically fall on the left side of my fly and roll off. And the right side where I get in the tent is actually covered. So that side will stay dry and it'll just make it easier getting in and out of the tent, especially if I'm gonna hang outside while it's raining. I was lucky with the surroundings that I didn't need to use one single peg. I found branches at every corner. So I have 6 tie-outs that I'm using, and then the ridge line. The ridge line, I just have the black rope that goes tree to tree, fed through the 3 loops, and then I have 2 red rope, which I then tie from the end loop to there. And then for the 6 tie-outs, I have a bowline, whatever it's called, at this end for all 6. And this trip I've actually decided to keep these ropes on while I pack it up, and I keep the bowline on and I just only untie this end. And then this end I use that same double hitch or trucker's hitch or whatever it's called. That, which is adjustable, it can slide to loosen and to tighten. So if it rains, if this gets saggy with the wetness, or if the wind kind of unloosens it, I can always just come back and tighten it up. And there are just roots. Here's a little baby root that I got it under. Tied out to this root. Actually, I lied, not all roots. I tied it to one tree. Right here. That's tied to the tree. Here's the knot. Alright, this is way too long to be talking about my tarp. But here's my tarp and tent. That's my setup for the night. Couple small things I need to do left, and then just relax for the rest of the day. By the late afternoon, the winds were going insane. I actually enjoyed hanging out at the front of the campsite listening to the wind howl because I knew I had proper shelter just a few feet behind me. The sunrise was blocked by the clouds and the forecast was calling for rain, so I got in my tent pretty early to call it a night. I was headed to Phipps Lake for night 6. The park only issues one permit for the lake, so I knew exactly which campsite I was going to get, which meant I was going to take my sweet time getting there. I walked at a pretty slow pace through the portages, stopped to check out some campsites on Lawrence Lake and Kirkwood Lake, and watched a bunch of birds do a bunch of bird things while I paddled by. I took a short break at the portage leading into Phipps Lake to collect some firewood and sit by the waterfalls for a few minutes before heading to my final destination for the day. I'm going to give a quick update. I'm running quite low on batteries and chargers, so I need to conserve as much as I can. Yesterday I was at the island site on Louisa, which was incredible. Overnight I woke up at like 1 a.m. and my nose was just clogged, like I had a cold. I was sneezing. I was just like wide awake at 1 o'clock, didn't know what to do, couldn't fall back asleep. I went outside of the tent to take a pee and try and get some fresh air. Eventually I fell back asleep, maybe like 2:30. I'm at my campsite on Phipps right now. on, I'm pretty sure it's an island. There's a tiny little patch of overgrowth, I guess you can call it, connecting it from the island to the mainland. So I'm here, just resting. It's like 4:30 now. I'm just gonna relax at this campsite, take it easy, try and not do anything too strenuous. Got my tent set up, and got everything else set up and ready to go. It's still pretty windy, but not too bad. There's some nice open rock at the front of the site. I might try and just get some sun for a bit. Alright, I need to conserve battery. See ya later. Actually, I'll show you my fire pit really quickly. The fire pit was a little bit of a mess, so I cleaned it up, took out all those burnt logs, just created a little bit of a dome around because there was no order to it. Just have my fire prep started. Light it, this will come off. This is my wood prepped. I did not have the energy to do any sawing or batoning or anything like that to split wood. I do have a couple bigger pieces here that I found in case I did have the energy, but I decided against it. This will be enough for maybe 45 minutes, which is all that I want tonight. I'm gonna go for a paddle to watch the sunset in the evening, see if there's any wildlife around. Yeah, try and get an ETB, early to bed. Short level fire, it's supposed to drop down to, I think, 6 at the lowest overnight, so obviously not at 8-9 o'clock when I go to bed. It's already starting to get chilly. I can feel the second the sun disappears, the second I'm in camp, it's quite cold, so give it a few hours and it'll be very cold, and then just bundle up inside my warm sleeping bag. And yeah, just prepare for a chilly night. 6, it's not too bad. I've been out here in the negatives before with the same setup that I'm using right now, the same tent, sleeping bag, and clothing, and I survived. I wanted to show you guys around my campsite. I realized I don't think I've been doing that on this trip too much, so I'm gonna do it now. This is the western campsite on Phipps Lake. I've camped here before, so I knew what to expect. This is the landing. This is a little bit more friendly for unloading, so I pulled up right there. Just pulled up sideways, took it all out sideways. It was a little annoying bringing everything underneath this tree, underneath these branches, but it was less of a pain than the alternative. So anyways, these are the canoe landing options. Here's some nice chunk of open rock, and if I remember correctly, I'm going to take you through right now. I believe it goes even more this way so that you can face east for the sunrise. Yeah. The sun is setting there. It's dipping down in the west. It will rise there. And I don't know if you can see on the video the orange marker, but the second campsite is within view when I'm standing on this rock here. Okay, let's go take a look inside the campsite. So I'm wearing my comfy cottons. Right now, that's what I sleep in. My sleeping bag gives me the warmth, and these give me the comfort. I'm wearing sweatshirt, sweatpants. I do have a shirt under here, and I do have long underwear in case I need it, but I'm not wearing it right now. Got some wool socks and some regular socks, my toque, and that's it. My rain jacket is a windbreak if needed, but not that I'm sleeping in that. Alright, back to the campsite. This is the first thing that we started at. This is the prettier open rock at the front of the site. And what makes it really nice, not only does it face the sunset, it also faces that little, I don't know, river, creek, whatever you want to call it, that leads into the next portage, into the Bonachère. So it's just a nice view, just looking out there. And as you go out onto these rocks, you also get some other pretty views. So here you get a view into this bay where the sun sets. You probably can't see, it's too dark, but there's some nice marshy area that maybe if you're lucky you can see some moose. Another set of marshy area over there. Just a nice panoramic view. And just lots of open rock. Just have some gear there. A couple benches. So here's the path to the Thunderbox, which is where the main tent spot area is. So you can see it's very large. Like you can fit a handful of tents. You can have like 4 tents facing each other and have like a little communal party in the middle and, you know, have a good time in Algonquin. I'm by myself, so that's clearly not happening today. So I decided to pitch my tent in the non-main tent spot over here instead. It's a smaller pad, but it's big enough for my 2-person tent. And I like it just because it's surrounded by trees. It's more enclosed. I just always like setting up my tent when possible, backing onto trees and shelter and not in the middle of paths that animals can roam around and walk through. So this is my tent set up. I guess you can pitch one here as well. That's the campsite. It's a pretty little site. You have the lake to yourself. They only issue 1 permit, even though there's 2 campsites on the lake. So it's a nice campsite, especially when you're guaranteed to get it. I prefer this one over the other site, but that's just me. I've camped on Phipps Lake twice now, and both times there was so much mist on the water it felt part eerie, part magical, and part calming. A weird combination, yeah, but whatever, I absolutely loved it. I was heading to Ragged Lake for my last night, although I was considering pushing through and finishing the trip a day early. I figured I'd get to Ragged, see how the weather was, and see what campsites were available, and just make a game time decision when I got there. Flip. It was a stunning day out, easily the best weather of the trip so far, and despite most campsites being taken by the time I arrived on the lake, to my surprise, the island campsite in the south of the lake was still free, and boy do I love that campsite. I just got to my last campsite of the trip, the island site on the south of Ragged Lake. And this is an insane site. I was here last... I'm just gonna get some jerky while I talk to myself. I was here last October during Thanksgiving just to check it out. I was camped elsewhere on the lake. And I said, I'm like, this would be a great summer site. It's just not good for October weather. And right now, look at that sun hitting my face as I say that. It's 18 degrees and sunny. It's gonna be like this all day. What a gorgeous last day. I've still got low supply of food, low choices, but way too much for one day. Well, like 7 Lara bars. Like 3 packets of banana bread. 15 marshmallows. Some whiskey. A huge Ziploc of trail mix. Another Ziploc of candy. 2 dehydrated meals that I decided not to have. I'm going to unload my gear. I'm going to set up my tent. That's the first thing I'm going to do. I got a little bit of firewood already, but maybe I'll go try and collect a little bit more. Again, I highly doubt I'll be able to find anything on the island. It'd be nice to have a fire going for an hour or so tonight. The real plan of the day is just sit out in the sun, take the shirt off, lie down on this beach. Before I do any of that, I'm going to give you a quick tour of the campsite. So this is the beach, which you are familiar with by now. Extends that way. There is a bit of a climb to the main site. Not ideal bringing your gear, but it's a necessary evil. Through the woods. Trust me when I say it is worth it. This is where I'm going to pitch my tent. It's the most enclosed, I don't know, covered. I like it the best. There's this, which I don't know, just looks like it's a little bit sloped. There's that one big root going through the middle. There's some seating a little bit further back. It's in pretty good condition, relatively speaking. Alright, and this is the second beach that I didn't even see the last time I was here. Yeah, so there's this huge grill. Someone clearly made a small fire. And yeah, just more beach. Alright, y'all ready for this view? Look, so this is the last tent spot. And it's flat. And it's for people who really like living on the edge. But if you pitch your tent here, you get to wake up to this. It is just magnificent. I don't know if the GoPro video does it justice. Pile of bigger pieces, pile of medium, and then just some smaller ones to get it started. Got some birch. I've got those guys which I couldn't snap over my knee, which either just means I need to lean them up sideways and step on them, or if I need to get out my saw, then I can always saw them. But I'm basically just going to use those as backup. I plan on having a fire for like, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half tonight. And then I'm probably going to want a fire in the morning to keep me warm as I pack up. It's supposed to be, I think, like 6 degrees, and I'm not in a particular rush to get out, so I'll probably just get a fire going, and in between packing up, just come and sit for a few minutes just to keep myself warm throughout. So I need to make sure I have wood left over for that too. So I just did one of those things that you know is stupid to do, but you do it anyways, and then you learn your lesson the hard way. And that is stomping on firewood in my sandals. There was a tiny little piece sticking out from one of the chunks that when I stomped on it, it went right through my sandal. It punctured my sandal, put a hole in it, went up through. But this is why I said it's one of those things you do and you learn. And I guarantee you I'll never be stomping on firewood in sandals again. Should I just take off the chunk of skin? Or should I just leave it? It's not gushing as much as I thought it was. It's not gushing at all. It's just bleeding. Gushing would be a gross exaggeration for this. It's not that bad. I think I'm just going to fold the piece of skin back on top and then bandage it. It's the biggest that I have. Oh, I got one of these guys. Let's try this. I feel like this is meant for those weird places. Oh, good as new. Let's do the trip again. From the top this time. I'm putting the sandal back on, but you can bet I'm not trying any more firewood. This is my quick first aid kit that I keep in my day pack. It's got some Advil, some Pepto, and then I have another first aid kit that I keep in my main pack. This is just the quickie. I also have a sewing kit in here. God forbid I do something that needs stitches. Not that I want to be stitching myself up, but that's why it's an emergency kit, not a I hope to use it kit. They don't call it that. Alright. Back to doing something that isn't stomping on firewood. Dinner time on my last night. I've been doing dehydrated dinners every night other than last night, because for the past 2 days my stomach has been bothering me. So I'm not doing dehydrated dinner, I'm treating myself to craft dinner, which is my favorite. I hate making it because it's just cheesy and the cleanup, and I know that sounds ridiculous because people make much more elaborate meals out here, but I like the dehydrated meals. I like you pour water in, you mix it, you let it sit, and that's it. There's no cleanup, there's no prep, there's no cooking. It's literally as easy as can get. Yeah, I bring normally, 1 second. Yeah, sorry, so I was saying, I bring normally 1 dehydrated dinner per night, and then I bring craft dinner as an extra meal. In case you get windbound or whatever, I like to have just 1 extra meal. Yeah, I think it's just smart to have backup just in case you don't want to plan every calorie exactly how it is, and then you get windbound and you're out here another day with no food. My final night of the trip couldn't have been more perfect. Gorgeous weather, breathtaking views, beautiful sunset, starry skies, and a crisp September evening to make cozying up in my sleeping bag feel all the more cozy. It was a bittersweet last evening, but I was very happy I decided not to end the trip early. Good night, Ragged Lake, and good night, Algonquin Park. I always have conflicting feelings on the last day of a long trip. On one hand, I feel a great sense of achievement and accomplishment, and I'm excited to wrap things up. But on the other hand, I'm just sad to leave. With a trip as good as this one, I wish it could last twice as long. And this is where my GoPro battery died. Luckily, there wasn't too much else to report on the last day. I watched the park plane do a few flybys overhead before landing right in front of me on Smoke Lake. That was pretty cool. It was an extremely windy day, but luckily the winds were at my back. A perfect final gift from Mother Nature.